Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for giving up your time this evening. We hope this is going to be of some help to all of you. Um, we've got quite a lot of people joining us today. We've got some from across the borders. Welcome to all our Welsh colleagues for coming along and joining us. Thank you very much. Um, I'm going to go through a few things first of all. Some of you may know who the Technical Officials Committee are, some of you don't. So I'm just going to run through the different members, who they are, what their role is on the Technical Officials Committee. My name's Brian Jackson. I think most of you have met me at some point or another. There's a few faces I don't recognise, but hopefully we'll meet when all this madness ends and we can get back to table tennis competitions. I'm the chairman of the Technical Officials Committee. I took over from Stuart Sherlock last year. I'm also the Technical Officials Committee representative on the Tournament Approvals Panel. And just to remind all of you, those that run tournaments organisers should have had an email recently. All the tournament organiser forms have been altered recently. They've all been reviewed by the Tournament Approval Panel. And just to make it even easier, all the forms that you have to send in are now going to different people to what you've previously sent them to. So the initial question you need to ask is when you're checking dates, that you now need to go to Gail Johns for that. Your actual form you fill in and send off to book your entry application form, the OT1 form goes to Stuart Sherlock. Once you've completed your entry form, it goes to Kate Hughes for approval, and the OT3 misconduct report now comes to myself. You'll find all that information on Table Tennis England website, the tournament organiser forms, and all the new forms are to be used from now onwards. We've recently recruited a secretary for the Technical Officials Committee because our previous secretary did resign from the role. So Dave Cochran has now taken over as secretary for the Technical Officials Committee. We have David Edwards, who is our secretary for domestic competitions, who sends out all the requests for umpires for all of our events. There is also Harry Juttle, who does all the foreign events, so asking umpires to go to events overseas. Harry is also the AETTU representative on the Technical Officials Committee. Joanna Althwaite is assisting on the umpires panel with the bigger events by quantity, in that the JBL, WBL, VBL, she coordinates all the people coming back saying they want to umpire at that, and works with Dave Cochran to take some of the load off Dave, because it is an awful lot that they get through. Karen Tong is our training and development coordinator, so she helps with and organises the running of all the courses for umpires, tournament officials, along with Chris Newton, who is our adult participation lead from Table Tennis England. They work closer together, trying to arrange training courses and exam courses. You will get told a little bit more about what we've managed to do during the lockdown, and also problems we've had during lockdown with arranging courses. Then somebody's tier changes and we've had to cancel them, rearrange them. Greg Yarnell is also part of the board. He's the head of development and volunteering for Table Tennis England. We have a board representative who is Tom Purcell. We've recently recruited two new younger officials, Dan Bullen and Lindsay Simpson, which we are hoping will be able to give us a bit more of an insight into how to involve younger people to get involved in officiating and keep their interest in officiating. So that is the members of the Technical Official Committee. We're going to move on now to one of the first things on the agenda, which is the change in ruling this year about doubles and shirts worn in doubles pairings. The rule was in two parts, basically. It said the players of a team taking part in a team match and players of the same association forming a doubles pairing in a World, Olympic or Paralympic type of competition shall be dressed uniformly, with possible exceptions of socks, shoes, and the number, size, colour and design of advertisements on clothing. The old ruling then went on to say players of the same association forming a doubles pairing in other international competitions may wear clothes of different manufacturers if the basic colours are the same and the National Association authorises this procedure. That was because of their sponsors. One may be sponsored by one shirt manufacturer, another sponsored by a different. That second part of the rule has now changed. So Regulation 3.2.2.7 now states the same at the beginning. The players of a team taking part in a team match of the same association forming a doubles pair in a World, Olympic or Paralympic competition shall be dressed uniformly, with the possible exceptions of socks, shoes, and the number, size, colour and design of advertisements on clothing. The last sentence regarding the players of the same association wearing clothes if the basic colours are the same has now been removed, which means that in a doubles match, provided it is not part of a team match or a World or Olympics, a doubles pair can wear whatever colour shirts they want, provided it does not clash with the opponents. So if you've got one pair in black and blue, the other pair cannot also be in one in black, one in blue. So as long as they are clearly different, and it is different from the colour of the ball, the fact they are from different associations will make no difference. That is now acceptable in doubles. So any questions about that, or are you all happy with that now? No? Right. There is another rule change which is coming in, but not until October of next year. This is about the surface of covering material on rackets. This is effective after Tokyo 2020 Olympics, Paralympics Games, which have been moved to this year. But with effect from October the 1st, 2021, the surface of the covering material on the side of the blade or side of a blade if left uncovered shall be matte black on one side and of a bright colour clearly distinguishable from black and from the colour of the ball on the other side. So all these new rubbers that have been on various websites where there's bright oranges, pinks, blues, greens, they are now going to be acceptable from the 1st of October as long as one side is black. So that's the new rules, that one that has come in and one that we know is coming on. So we'll move on now to Chris, who's going to give us an update about the Table Tennis England uniform status.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Hope you like the picture there. There's some familiar faces on that picture. Josh is looking particularly pretty at the front there. Just a quick update from me in terms of umpires' uniform. As some of you may know, we were due this season to bring in our new uniforms of a polo shirt and soft shell jacket. And some of you know those, and I think we've given out something like 70 of the new uniforms so far. Obviously, we've hit COVID. Obviously, events have finished right now, and obviously we've stopped giving out uniforms because of all those things. So TOC met just before Christmas to discuss this, and we agreed we'll implement the full new uniform at 4-star level and above. So that's 4-star, things like senior prem, cadet, county prem, and all national events. So we'll introduce a new uniform for those events from the start of next season. So come the AGM in the summer, when the new season starts for 21-22, at those events, sort of 4-star upwards, we'll expect people to be wearing that new uniform. If you're attending those events, if you don't have the uniforms, please do be in touch with me. I've got about 14 boxes in my garage. I'm more than happy to give them out wherever possible so I can get my car back in the garage. But they are stuck there, obviously, because of COVID right now. Just for references, now blue polo shirt for umpires and a blue soft shell jacket, and equivalent in red for referees, matched with black trousers, black shoes. And I've had a question recently, what socks should I wear with that? We didn't take a decision on that, but I guess the obvious answer is black socks as well to match. So that's been introduced from next season. We're also just in a process, having received quite a bit of feedback about name badges, of investigating costs and manufacture of magnetic name badges with people's qualification on, so we can put those onto onto the sort of breast pocket or coat pocket on a uniform, just to carry on with that kind of tradition of umpires and referees wearing their name badges. If I just move on now to second topic, apologies to the Welsh umpires. This is just for English umpires information here, and just for reference for the nations involved in the Commonwealth Games. Selection process for your umpiring will go direct to your national association, starting around July, and the selection process from the Commonwealth Games Federation is expected to end in January next year. So we expect to hear from July onwards regarding your kind of selection of umpires for their own nations. In terms of England, we've set out a selection process for the Commonwealth Games. For this reason, there are at the Commonwealth Games 1 referee, 5 deputy referees, of which we may get 2 positions within that process. There are going to be 36 umpires in total at the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, 18 of which will be from England as host nation. Of those 18, 50% can be level 2. The other 50% need to be above level 2, i.e. international umpires or upwards. I've got more than 36 applications now for that process, hence why we need selection for that. So technical officials committee have formed a subcommittee, and we've come up with a following process in a clear and transparent way for selection for Commonwealth Games. Nobody on that selection committee has a vested interest in umpiring at the Commonwealth Games, so it's trying to be a clear and transparent process for everybody there. So the first criteria we need people to be at or have is level 2. You need to be a national stand umpire or higher to be eligible for Commonwealth Games, and this needs to be, you need to hold this qualification by the end of February this year. Importantly, you need to be able to commit to the following dates: either the 24th or 25th of July 2022 arrival and departure on the 8th of August. You will be expected to stay in the official provided accommodation for that whole period. You are expected to take part every day in the Commonwealth Games in some capacity. So that it's not a part-time drop in on a Tuesday, leave on a Wednesday. You will be expected to be there for the full process. Just for reference, as far as I know so far, the accommodation for the umpires is at the Ibis Hotel, which at Birmingham Airport. So it's a short stroll into the building in the morning. It's probably a 10-minute walk from the hotel into building into the NEC. The third part of the criteria, what we would expect people to do now, is take part in all our formal training, and also for those blue badge umpires, we would like you to mentor our new level 2 umpires. Time is limited now, especially with no events being on and cancelled due to COVID and so on. We expect the blue badge umpires that are selected to mentor our new level 2 umpires. And the training we're likely to be doing over that period is racket testing training, multi-ball training, and training on inputting scores while you're actually sat there at your umpire's desk. And importantly, for the new level 2 umpires that we've just taken on, who have got very little experience of being an umpire working as an umpire and assistant umpire in court, we need to rapidly do training on that with people as well. So we expect everybody in that process to be taking part in that training of everybody. And also similarly, we expect those same people to attend key events that we have. Presume events happen. We expect people to attend our key events. So for instance, at Junior British League, we would expect blue badge umpires to be at that event, mentoring and working in pairs with our level 2 umpires to get those level 2 umpires up to speed at Junior British League. So we would put, for instance, at Junior British League on the Premier courts, and those 3 Premier divisions, or 6 even Premier Division courts, we would put umpire and assistant umpire on those courts. Again, just to rack that experience up for our new umpires. And this is the actual application process. We're at stage 1 now. Stage 1 is an expression of interest, which will end at the last day of February. This is just a simple email to me saying I'm interested in umpiring at the Commonwealth Games. And as I said previously, you're expected to be at level 2 by the 28th of February for that process. Stage 2 then will be a formal application process open to everybody who's expressed an interest. This will close at the 30th of April. We will in the meantime write a selection criteria so we can then pick and choose the umpires who meet that criteria. Stage 3 then is a decision on selection. This will be made during June 2021. This will be made by the TOC selection committee, which is Stuart Sherlock, myself and Margot Fraser. Like I mentioned, none of us are umpiring or have a vested interest in umpiring at Commonwealth Games, so we're all independent of the process. And then once decisions are made and communicated out, our final English selection list will be sent off to Commonwealth Games Federation, and they will expect to tell us their final decision on if they approve our umpires by the end of January 2022. So that will give you a 6-month lead in time for the Commonwealth Games if you are finally selected. On another note, if you're interested in actually volunteering at the Commonwealth Games away from officiating, the actual volunteering process for Commonwealth Games is at pre-interest stage also. If you visit www.birmingham2022.com and look on the Get Involved section, there is a pre-register section on volunteering. That process again will start in July. The official formal process will start again in July, of which the Commonwealth Games will deal with that rather than Table Tennis England. But if you're generally interested in that, please go for it. If you are interested in being there, I'll be involved in field of play at the Commonwealth Games. If you start going through that process, please start talking to me about the application as well. In the meantime, I can sort of guide you through that pre and early application stage. If that's something you are interested in. So please be in touch. Okay, the Commonwealth Games process. It's just to follow on nicely from that. What I'd like at stage 2 of the application process is for interested umpires to start putting their recent CV onto Sport 80. So this is the Table Tennis England membership system. You all should have a login, an ID and a password for that system. That's just your general membership number you would get if you're playing your local league. If you log on to Sport England system on that website there, you will see a page similar to this one with my name on there. I've cut half the page off there because it's got my personal details on there. As you can see, 18th of January, it's just been my birthday, so thanks all very much for your presents. But you will see that as a first page. On that first page, you will be looking for this word here, officiating. So if you select the word officiating, the next page will bring this one. You would, at this stage, in terms of your previous events or your CPD or any involvement you've had in maybe the past 5 years, rather than that being on paper, if you add that here by clicking the word add officiating here, that will then bring you onto a different page, which will look like this. I'll send these slides out to you, by the way, later, so if you don't need to take notes too much on that. On this, you will see the word event attended here, or CPD here. You would then click on the word add here. If you click on that, that will bring up this page, and there's just a simple box here to put your information in. So it would be attended Junior British League 24th of December in Wolverhampton. And then click the word add. That will then add it to the system. It will come to me for clarification. I'll be able to approve that and say, yes, you attended that, or so on. But I would generally like those umpires that are interested in the Commonwealth Games at any level to start using this system, rather than it being on a handbook or we're having to email each other to ask for that information. It really is a simple process. It takes seconds to do that. You'll also see on there your other qualifications, whether that be coaching, officiating, or your committee status, or your local league affiliations, and so on that page. So that's enough for me. Next, Brian, do you want me to hand straight to Karen on that to talk about the level one refereeing paper? Karen, if you're there somewhere, it's all yours.
Mute. Right. While some of you are sat at home doing nothing, we wondered if you'd like to have a go at doing the level one referees paper, which we've updated. We are desperate for referees across the country, and Table Tennis England are currently reviewing the competition structure. So there may be more events around the country. So they can only take place if we've got referees. So there's a test paper, a scheduling, working out who's the group, and then assisting somebody else to run an event who's already qualified. The only thing is, if you become a referee, it's not acceptable to play in an event. Similarly, we've got tournament organisers course due to take place at the end of February that will at level 2, which is the first level that we now operate at, and that 2 Wednesday nights for 2 hours each, followed by a mini test paper. So if anybody is interested in doing that, same applies though, you can't play an event if you're an organiser. And then we are aware with Chris that there's 1 or 2 people who still need to do the level 2 paper, but due to the current COVID situation, we're stuck at the moment. I think that's basically it. Chris has got the test papers, and you can write in to Chris for the test papers.
Yeah, we've got two waiting now, Karen. But if you genuinely are interested, give me a shout. I can send the paper over to you. Of which also, I think, Karen, you need a prerequisite of being a level 1 umpire as well. Is that right?
Yes, you got to be a level 1. I mean, everybody on the Zoom call should be 1 or above umpire. So as long as you're level 1 umpire, you can write in to do the level 1 referee. You don't have to have any qualifications to do the tournament organisers. So spread the word.
Just out, Karen, just for reference there as well, we're planning a tournament organisers level 2 course on the 24th of February.
Yeah.
And I think it's the 4th of March, and two evening sessions, which we'll advertise that shortly as well, if anybody's interested in that. Okay, Brian, we can move on.
Okay, thank you, Karen. While we've got Karen and Chris on, so that other people know what we've been up to during lockdown, could you just run through the successes we've had with our various exams that you two have managed to organise? I know some we've struggled with a bit, but could you just have a mention to those, please? Yeah,
sure. So to start with, during lockdown 1, you may recall I sent an invite out to anybody within Table Tennis England saying, are you interested in taking the basic level 1 qualification via our online Moodle platform? Of that, we got something like 60 responses saying, yes, I'm interested in becoming an umpire during lockdown. Obviously, people got time on their hands during that first lockdown. And of that, I think about, off the top of my head, 35 people passed their test paper at level 1. So those 35 people are now waiting for a level 1 assessment. So as soon as I can get those people into a competition again, we'll take them through their assessment and some more training with one of our tutors, and hopefully we'll have a new cohort of lockdown level 1 umpires. To follow on from that, and in line with the Commonwealth Games, we have a target of getting more younger and female level 2 referees at the Commonwealth Games. We set about the process of trying to get more of these 2 target groups for us into at level 1 during lockdown 1 and 2, which was quite a challenge to run exams during all the travel restrictions and so on. This is an actual physical test paper, so we literally had to do quite a lot of logistical work around travel and social distancing and all that kind of stuff. And we've put about 20 people through a level 2 exam, of which 3/4 of those people have passed. I think off the top of my head, I think that's 15 people gone through level 2, of which, just for reference, the last 5 years, I think we've only put 4 people through level 2. So lockdown's provided some good opportunities for us to do some training. And I think we've got a couple of resits to come in February, and we've got, looking at a list on my whiteboard there, I think we've got 3 3 more people to take their level 2 exam. So sadly, while a lot of the sports not been happening during lockdown, we've been able to do these test papers and push on with the umpiring world. And we've hosted quite a lot of Zoom calls and Zoom trainings via Alex Mercer and Karen and Brian to push people forward with that. So we've, in a way, we've got a lot of people qualified during lockdown. So it's been a good, in some respects, a good time for us, and we'll carry on pushing that forward as much as we can, because as you know, we need more umpires, frankly, generally. So a good success, Brian, to end with.
It was well done, both Chris and Karen, because you put a lot of work into getting all that organised. So well done. We've also got 7 people wanting to do the level 2 referees exam, haven't we? That we're trying to arrange, but unfortunately, because of different change in lockdown, we've had to keep putting it on hold and moving it. So we have 7 more people wanting to do the national referee, which will be great when we can get it organised and get on with it. So there's a lot of work still been going on, even though we're in lockdown. I'm going to pass over to Tom Purcell now, who's been umpiring at the highest standard for quite a long time. So we're just going to get into a little chat about what goes on, what's expected at that level, and some of the experiences that he's come across. Thanks, Tom. Can pass it over to you.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see you all again. As I said, I've been asked to talk a bit about the blue badge umpiring and a couple of stories from my travels. And although these stories about my experiences, all the umpires who travel abroad have got similar stories to tell. I started umpiring in the mid-90s. I didn't want to. I was told I was getting too slow to play fast games anymore, but I never realised I was fast in the first place. But Stan Clark persuaded me, and I went on to do my level 1, or county umpire as it was then, and the rest is history. And I've been very, very lucky and privileged to umpire at lots of major events. My first overseas events was in Portugal, the Portuguese youth, and me and Linda Reid went together. And one of the first things I learned there was about the use of cards, the yellow cards. And I had them all in one pocket. I was watching some French umpire, and he was flashing the cards all over the place. And what I discovered was he'd have his white cards in one pocket, his reds in another, and his yellows in another. So he knew exactly which pocket to go to if he needed to pull a card out. That was my first international experience and my first learning lesson, my first lesson from traveling abroad. Linda and I then went to Sarajevo to the European Youth. I think Karen was the deputy referee there. And Karen and I then met a lovely lady who we christened Miss Whiplash. She was a Bosnian umpire, and I was partnered with her for the first day. And I said, I'll do the first game, you do the second game. No, I don't umpire. I said, well, you are an umpire. Yes, but I don't like umpiring. I will just assist, and I will just write down the scores. And she grabbed hold of the scoreboard and kept it. Well, I need that because I need to be able to pronounce the names, because they're all Eastern European names, 13 letters, every letter in the alphabet. No, I will do that. But the pacifier, I let her do that. But this went on all day, and she refused to hand over the scoreboards. She'd run and get them and bring them back. And for the second day, I decided that I would catch her out. So I sent her to clean the table. And while she cleaned the table, I grabbed a scoreboard off her table. She went mad, reported me to the referee. And luckily, the referee sorted her out and not me out. And I was given another Bosnian umpire, assistant umpire, who said, I don't umpire, I only do the scores. So luckily, this umpire spoke 5 different languages. So every time in a match, she would say to me, Mr. Tom, the coach is coaching. Well, how do you know that? You don't speak German, but I do. And he spoke German, Russian, French, Dutch, and something else. So I kept him for the rest of the tournament, and we had a good time. In 2004, I became an IU, and we then obviously found out in 2005 that we were going to get the Olympics. So I, along with others, obviously, went for the blue badge qualification, which I got, thankfully. I went to St. Petersburg, Russia, and I passed it there. And I was lucky enough to be selected for the Olympics in London. again, I was lucky. I got the final, the men's final, and it all went peacefully until there was a disputed edge ball, and I couldn't see it because Wang Hao had moved sideways, and I couldn't see whether the ball touched the table or not. I didn't think it had, so I gave the point to Wang Hao. Yang Jika insisted it was an edge. I asked Wang Hao, it's no, understand. But at the end of the day, I had to make a choice, and I gave the point to Wang Hao. They spoke to each other in Chinese, and the very next thing is Wang Hao deliberately served into the net and gave the point back. So I had to make a decision then whether I gave him a yellow card or not. I decided not to, because if you recall, all hell had broken loose in the ladies' final, and I decided not to have a similar thing in my final. I was asked by the referee after why I didn't give him the yellow card. I explained it, and he said he was happy with that decision. So, I've been very, very lucky at being a blue badge. But now, you may know, they're going to bring in a gold badge. A gold badge is going to be the next step up, and they're going to be semi-professional umpires. So to be a gold badge, you'll have to be a blue badge for a number of years. When you're a blue badge and go away to a tournament, you are assessed in detail during there. You're evaluated, and you can either pass the assessment, have a near meets on the assessment, or fail the assessment. And to maintain your blue badge qualification, you have to get a certain number of evaluations over a 3-year period. And I'm lucky I've qualified during all the years I've been doing it. But now, with a change to this world table tennis, they're bringing in this gold badge. So gold badge umpires will be blue badge umpires who go through a new process called assessment, referee team assessment. So instead of being individually assessed by an individual evaluator, the whole referees team will watch you during a tournament. And at the end of that tournament, they will give you an assessment, a score. If you score between 80 and 90 points, you have passed, you have met the assessment. But to get a gold badge, you have to score more than 85 points on a regular basis. And then you will be classed as a gold badge umpire. And then when the big tournaments come up, if you're selected, you will sign a contract with the organisers. Your fares, your accommodation, and you'll receive a very good daily allowance. And you'll sign a contract to say that you will do maybe 2 or 3 tournaments a year, anywhere in the world. If you're selected, everything's paid for you. So you'll be semi-professional to do these events. It's going to be a few years, obviously, before this gets up and running properly, because there's no gold badge umpires at the moment, but there will be over the next few years. So that's a big change. And I think, Brian, Chris, are we circulating the umpire's career development document?
Well, I haven't, but it's something we could do.
Well, I sent it on to you to circulate them. I had circulated to the blue badges, but it needs to go to everybody, because it talks about all different levels of umpiring. A couple of funny stories, and one funny and one serious. I've told you about Miss Whiplash. That was Linda and I still laugh about that when we see each other. But in 2008, I was selected to go and umpire in Budapest at the final world qualifiers for the Beijing Olympics. And I was asked to umpire a match between Botta from Hungary and one of the Pavlovich girls from Belarus. And it was for the final place for the women's singles for the Beijing Olympics. And me and the Russian umpire, I umpired, and she was the assistant umpire. Pavlovich can be a bit temperamental and sometimes loses her temper and gets cards. So it was the best of 7, and somewhere in the first few games, I gave her a yellow card for something. I can't remember what it was, but I gave her a yellow card. And in the 6th game, Potter was winning 3-2 in games, and it was 8-all in the 7th match. Potter hit the ball, it clipped the net, hit the side of the table, the edge of the table, and went off. So she now got the score of 9-8. Pavlovich lost her temper, grabbed the ball and smashed it out of the court. So she'd already had a yellow card, so I gave her yellow-red. So the score now was 10-8 to Potter. And she only needed 1 more point to win the match and go to Beijing. Pavlovich was taking her time and wouldn't get going and wouldn't serve properly again. So I warned her again, and she got the ball again and just smashed it against the surround. And I had to give her a second yellow-red, which meant that Potter had gone from 8-all to winning the match 11-8 without playing another shot. And luckily, one of the deputy referees had realised what had been going on and watched the match. So they supported me. They knew I'd done what I had done. I was right. So there's my experiences of being a blue badge and some updates on where it's going. But I'll circulate that paper. It's a new document from the URC. It's called Career Development for Umpires, and it goes through all the different levels, including the new gold badge. So that's all from me, unless anyone's got any questions.
Okay, thanks for that, Tom. Right, we're going to move on. Now. We've got some questions people have sent in beforehand, which we're going to go through and answer as many of these as we can. First question: how do we deal with illegal serving as a referee at a 1 or 2 star tournament where you have no umpire to put on a match, a group stage, for example? Most players that are umpiring are reluctant to umpire the shoe correctly, even when the contravention is blatant. Can a referee warn a player that he may be expelled from the competition, for example? Unfortunately not. Not for a foul serve. You can't expel someone from a competition. The way I deal with somebody doing illegal serving, if it's a junior, I would go across to them when they finish the match, have a chat with them and either a parent or a coach, whoever's come with them, explain to them why it's a foul serve, and then get them or the parents to say, get the coach to work on it, put it right. If you go to a tournament with an official umpire, you will give a point to your opponent every time you do it. If it was older players, senior players, I'm afraid there's nothing what you can do about it as a referee unless you've got umpires there. It is the umpires that are checking services and will deal with it. So if it's a senior event, as referee, there's very little you can do about it. You can mention it to them, but like it says in the question, most players that umpire are reluctant to do it. They don't want to umpire in the first place. They don't want to have any problems by trying to get the rules applied correctly. So unless you have umpires there to deal with it, there's not a lot as a referee you can do apart from get some umpires at your event. Okay, the next question, Chris, please. In respect of umpiring at 2020 Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, is there an upper age limit for eligibility? Can we pass this over to you, Chris?
Yep, thanks. Yep. No, the simple answer is no. There's no upper age limit. The only age limit for anybody's involvement in the Commonwealth Games in any position is a lower age limit, which is you must be 18 at the day of the opening ceremony of the Commonwealth Games. So no, there is no upper limit at all.
Okay, can we go to the next question, Chris? Let's pass this one over to Tom. The ITTF one-day online training session, will it be open to all IUs or just those on the Gold Badge programme, and will that course be free of charge?
At the moment, the answer is no. It's only when you see the paper I'll circulate through Chris, you'll see that to maintain your Gold Badge, you must obviously get successful assessments during the season. You must attend a certain number of events and be successfully assessed. And once a year, there will be an online training day for the Gold Badge umpires, A, to bring them up to date, and B, to get them to help assist with training the blue badges and other umpires. At the moment, it will be free. It'll be online, but only for Gold Badge. But they are going to look at it with a view to being passed down onto blue badges, and then a bit further down the line, to white badge, to IUs then. For the moment, it'll only be for Gold Badge umpires.
Okay, thank you, Tom. I'll move to the next question, Chris. Are there any more level 2 assessments for umpires being conducted? By assessments, I'm assuming you mean practical assessments. If it's actual exam you're looking to take, you need to speak with Chris. Practical assessments of the 14, 15 that have passed the written exam during the lockdowns, there are some that have already had an assessment for the level 2. There are some that need to have assessments. As soon as events start getting up and running, Chris and Karen and probably myself, Alex, will be doing our best. We'll include Tom, Harry, anyone we can that's international umpires, try and get them involved to events where people are going to do assessments. But until we get events started up again, there's very little we can do with that. Is there anything you want to add, Chris or Karen?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Go on, Karen. Yep.
Yeah, there are no practical assessments, Brian, at the moment. They were waived.
Right.
So it's just the exam they've got to do.
Right.
There is no practical assessment. If they don't meet the board approved it because of COVID. So at the moment, if they pass the test paper, they will be a qualified level 2 umpire. But they will, if they don't meet the required standard, they will not be selected, or they will be withdrawn from selection from the games. They've got to meet the standard.
Yeah. And Brian, also we will be we'll be running some level 2 umpiring exams in the middle of February. So those people who need to do it first time or resit, we'll put that on mid-February, and I'll be in touch probably sometime next week about dates for that and figure a way somehow how we can do, which is going to be a lot harder than it sounds because of the COVID regulations right now. But we're intending by hook or by crook to get there with those exams somehow in February again.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that. I'll go to the next question, please, Chris. Right. When is the ITTF going to change the service rule to ensure at all times the ball is visible to the umpire? Umpiring with assistant is not always possible, and sometimes the assistant may not have the necessary experience to make a decision about the service rule. Mind you, the same can be said of the umpire with limited and many years of experience who tend to let things go because it appears to not affect the receiving player. What about the service rule about vertical and angle from vertical when an umpire can be seated close to the table, high above the table, too far from the table? Some venues are better or worse than others. Right, well, when the ITTF is going to change the rule is something, unfortunately, we don't have any jurisdiction over. That's ITTF would do it. But reading the latest ITTF Handbook 2020, it does say in there the primary requirement of current service law is for the server to ensure the receiver can see the ball throughout the service. And the umpire or assistant umpire must be satisfied if it's the case that the receiver can see it. It's not important that the referee can see it. The referee has to make that decision. It is, however, the responsibility of the player to serve so the correctness of his or her service action can be seen. That way, if he or she serves near the margins of illegality, they run the risk of being penalised for it. So the umpire, assistant umpire have to do their best to see, but like it says in there, some venues are better or worse than others, but there's nothing in the rule to say the service has to be visible at all times to the umpire. Tom, is there anything you can add to that?
No, it is a very, very difficult thing to assess sometimes, because as the person who wrote the question is the note has said, you have various levels of experience and confidence, and one of the big things that causes problems with players is lack of continuity from the umpires, because one umpire might be very, very strict and just penalise someone for the slightest thing. You learn from experience that that's not always the right thing to do, that you might be just overzealous. But it can be infuriating sometimes when you know you have penalised a player for a foul serve, and you're watching another game at another table when you're not umpiring. You see exactly the same serve bit taking place, which you've penalised, and the other umpire's letting it go. A lot of it can be down to the referee giving advice before the tournaments. But basically, there should be continuity from the umpires. and that's gained with experience. They did with the bottom part of the question there is about the angle and vertical the ball is. If we recall, last year they did test the I forget the name for it now, but the table tennis equivalent of VAR about, and some players were penalised for throwing the ball back over the not vertical, and they allowed, if I remember correctly, they allowed 30 degrees for one, and it was classed as legal. And obviously the rule says as near vertical as possible, but to me 30 degrees isn't. So they tested it, they piloted it, and they weren't happy with the results. So at the moment, all that's on the back burner for further assessment and further testing. But a lot of it's down to continuity and experience of the umpires.
So something I was told when I was starting umpires about the service rule, we've got to put it up 160 millimeters, which is roughly the height of the net. I was told to imagine a cube on the player's hand, which is 160 millimeters high, wide, and deep. When the ball's thrown up, it needs to go out the top of that cube. If it goes out the sides, back or front, it's an illegal serve. So that's what I used it initially, imagining that cube on the player's hand, the ball has to leave the top of the cube. That may help some others trying to decide, has it gone out sideways, backwards, forwards? That's something that somebody told me, and I've used that to help me decide, is that close enough to vertical? Right, can we move to the next question, please, Chris? Right, with umpiring at event, could the organiser, when preparing the umpire notes for umpiring, be the same across all events and associations? That entirely depends on what the event is. If you're looking at a national championship, you are looking for different things that you might be looking for at JBL, which could be different to what you'd want at a 4-star. So the umpire notes are going to be similar, but there may be some things that want watching more at different events. Karen or Tom, do you want to comment on that?
No, Tom, no. It's up to the organiser, the referee. They're the people who run the events.
Yeah, Karen.
As you say, most of the briefing notes are very, very similar. But as you quite rightly say, there might be something which needs to be highlighted in that particular event, but most of them are very similar.
For international events, can you hear me?
Yeah.
For international events, there is a referee's toolkit. I don't know if any of you spotted it on the ITTF URC page, and there are samples given there for umpires briefing and various other things that go out, which you tend to use when it's an open event internationally, so that they are all the same. There's very little difference apart from meal times and some organisational issues.
Okay. Is there any more questions, Chris?
Yeah, we've got a few more, yeah.
More, yeah. Right. Does an umpire have to signify the start of the game, or can the players just start playing? Well, the answer to that is no, the umpire does start the game. Is there any rule on how that should be done, e.g. by saying love all, play? There is which like Tom, Harry will know, and all the international umpires will know, that if it's a singles match, you will call the player by the surname. If it's a team event, you will use the team name. So if you've got China playing Germany, the start would be Germany to serve, first game, love all. That signifies the players can start playing, and as you say love all, you would turn over your first two scorers to show 0-0 for start of play. So the umpire is actually in control of what's happening when the match is going to start. Can a player stamp his foot when serving? There is nothing in the rules to stop them stamping the foot. As an umpire, though, you do have to decide, is it excessive? Is it making a lot of noise? It could be upsetting the other player. Then it might be worth having just a quiet word, but no, there's nothing to stop somebody stamping the foot. Any other comments, Karen or Tom?
No.
No.
It's the old rule that went out. It was when they were trying to disguise which side of the bat they were hitting it with, when he had black both sides or red both sides.
Yeah.
And they used to stamp it to disguise which side of the bat they were hitting with. So once it went to red and black, there was really no need for that rule to exist.
Yeah. Okay, can we move on to the next one, please, Chris?
Brian, can I just make a comment about that first question there? That on the ITTF website, there is a series of videos showing the information on how an umpire should act on court. Maybe I'll send a link round afterwards for that, so you can watch those videos. I think there's 5 or 6 videos that explain that, you know, what you should say and where you should stand and so on court, which are quite useful.
Could I just say another thing, Chris, while you're on about videos? Some of you, or nearly all of you, won't have done any umpiring since last March. So it would do no harm to load a video up. There's loads on YouTube, and actually umpire along with a match to get yourselves in practice. It's something I've always done before I go abroad to an international event. When I was a blue badge, I used to practice doing the hand signals and making sure I was up to speed. So it with YouTube and that, it's so easy now to follow a match and practice.
There is a video on there as well for all the hand signals for service faults, which only came in last couple of years. So there's a video on there with all the different hand signals for that as well.
Okay.
Okay, we can move to the next question. Can a player talk during a rally, for example, say sorry for hitting the top of the net with the ball? And if not, what is the penalty? Well, talking during a rally, if it's a case of having a conversation or whatever, then yes, that's not acceptable. But just saying sorry for catching the net, quite often players just say sorry, raise the hand. No, there wouldn't be a penalty for that. Okay. Next question.
This is the last one, Brian.
This is the last.
Sorry, Brian, can I just come in there? Sorry, just on that last question about talking. Obviously, the rule on coaching has changed over the last couple of years. So it would be totally wrong for a player to talk to his coach during a match.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, during a rally.
Yeah.
He can talk to his coach in between rallies, but to talk during the rally or to have the coach talk to him and coach him during a rally is completely wrong and would be penalised by the umpire.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Right, the last question. We've all witnessed Harimoto's excessive shouting after winning a point. I believe most opinions on this is that it's negative to the sport, it's bad behaviour or disadvantageous to the opponent. It seems that the laws allow such behaviour to be penalised, but no such sanctions are made when he plays at international level. Therefore, have the ITTF or TT provided guidance on such behaviour? Again, in the 2020 International Table Tennis Federation Handbook, it does mention in here an example of behaviour which might justify action by the umpire: shouting during play in annoyance or elation. But in deciding how to react, the umpire should take account of the environment in which it occurs. If the general noise level is so high the player's shouting is hardly noticeable, it's more sensible not to stop play, but wait until the end of the rally before speaking to the offending player. So Tom has told me that he was umpiring someone and just a hand signal, just telling them to calm down. That can have as much effect as stopping and starting the game all over again.
I umpired Harimoto in Budapest last year, and he was shouting all the time, and it ended up with me saying to him, just calm down, and I gave the hand signal, or just calm down, and he did for about 5 points. And then there was an exceptionally good rally which he won, and he was jumping all over the place and shouting. But again, he wasn't doing that to offend his opponent. He was doing that just with the success of winning the points. And that's one thing to consider. Is he doing it to wind up the opponent, in which case he may be penalised, or is he just is happy about his success? I think I mentioned to Brian before, and I've passed it on to Chris. The URC, ITF URC, has prepared a number of webinars about umpiring. One's about the 2020 IU exam and the results. One's about misbehaviour as seen by referees and umpires. And I forget what the other two are now, but they're now on YouTube, and you can go in there and you can watch the webinars like this one, and it goes through all the things like excessive shouting and talking. Like if you remember Brazil and the Paras, what's his name? One jumped on the table.
Will Bailey.
Will Bailey.
Well, yeah, but that's been approved now in those circumstances.
I know it has. At the time he was penalised, but now what they're saying in the URC is if it's something like that and is happy and really happy and jumping on the table at the end of a match in a senior competition, then you wouldn't penalise them. But there's another example of where a player did it in an international match after winning a set that he played and won. And then the following week, I think it was in Austria, one of the players in the senior league jumped on the table after winning a match in the senior league. And so why have you done that? He said, well, the player did it in the international, so I thought I'd do it. So you have to be very careful about it. If it's at the end of a tournament in a final and it's all about success and happiness, that's one thing. If it's in other situations, then it may be you deal with it differently.
Does it also say in the rules that, however, if the umpire believes that an opponent may have been adversely affected or the behaviour is likely to end up fatal or otherwise detrimental to the sport, should immediately declare that and formally warn the offender by holding up a yellow card. So
Yes.
It does come down to the situation, what's being shouted.
Yeah.
Is it already loud in the venue, or is it the only match going on and there's loads of noise being made for no reason? It's not a cut and dried black or white situation. You have to take other things into consideration. Okay.
Brian, I've just had a comment on that from Steve Prince, who actually put this original question into. It's a question to Tom about that. The point about Harimoto is not that he may be trying to gain an advantageous with situation with a point. I'm not quite sure what that says. He might be upsetting an opponent, even though Harimoto may not be intending to. So he's not trying to gain an advantage with a point. But he might be upsetting his own.
I accept that. But as Brian said, if it's the final where there's only one table and there's about 5,000 people watching it, then the opponent isn't bothered about it, then you might just ask him to calm down, but you wouldn't penalise him for it. If he's doing it quite deliberately, as some players can do, to wind the opponents up, then you would do something about it. But again, at the end of the day, what you might do is just speak to the referee and ask the referee what his opinion is. Should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? Because all through the tournament, he may not have been penalised, and he's doing exactly the same thing in the final, and I penalise him, and then all hell breaks loose as to why I've penalised him, which might result in him losing the final when nobody else has. So again, it's all about situations and dealing with it in the right manner. At the moment, there's nothing saying you can't shout and bawl at the moment.
And sometimes it gets the sport a lot of good publicity, like the Will Bailey incident. I mean, if you ask Will Bailey to normally to get up, he couldn't get up on a chair, let alone on the table. It was adrenaline that got him up there.
Tom, just a further follow up on that question. But what if the opponent's unhappy about it? So what if your opponent's not happy with you shouting and bawling?
If the opponent wasn't happy, and I have seen it happen. It happened in one match I did. I would warn the opponent. I would warn the person who's doing the shouting, and warn them, saying, "Look, you're upsetting the opponent. You're interfering with the match. Don't do it anymore." And if they did it again, you'd penalise them. Simple as that. Yellow card.
Yeah.
And if they're shaking the fist in the opponent's face as well, then it's a card.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes they just shake their fist with glee that they've won the point. Hey! But if it's against the opponent, automatically a yellow card. Yeah.
Did there used to be a rule about how you could show your fist? You could show your fist like, I can't do it, sideways as opposed to like face on. Was there some kind of rule?
Ever a rule? I don't recall that.
The rule of stuff.
Etiquette.
Yeah. As long as it wasn't showing aggression towards your opponent.
Yeah. Oh, there's that. Yes. Yeah.
Is that the last of the questions?
That's the last of the questions. Do you want to just go through? Do you want to go through some of the chat things now, Brian? Just quickly.
On there, anybody wants to ask? Yeah.
There's 2 or 3 on there that most people have just put an interest in taking that level 1 umpiring award. I've got a note to your name. I'll send those test papers out to you tomorrow. If you don't receive it tomorrow because it's got lost in this chat, just drop me a message and remind me. But I've got a list hopefully of all those people who've said that. I've got a question from Chris about level 2 mentoring. During lockdown, 1-to-1 mentoring for you. So Chris, if you're interested in doing your level 2 exam, give me an email again. I'll start setting up for you. A question from Phil about a data on Sport 80. Phil, it takes seconds to put your information on it. It's quicker than writing it down on Sport 80 than writing it all into a book. Once you get the hang of it, I think, is it John Stalker he's put all his information on that website while we've been talking today. Dave Golden, Dave, we're waiting to do those exams still. We're just stuck with COVID regulations for that level 2 refereeing exam. Lyndon Griffiths, yes, Lyndon, you can see all the events on Sport 80 that you put in there. I just couldn't fit it all onto my screen to show you today, but it'd be obvious when you open your screen that big list. And just a comment there from Jason Ramage about shouting. These things happen all the time during VBL. I think the majority don't want to get involved with players and cause an issue and arguments. Any comments on players on that?
Again, it comes down to there's a lot of it going on, it's all over the hall, it's generally a noisy hall, it shouldn't cause too much distraction to other people. But as a referee, if I hear lots of shouting going on, particularly if it's both players on the table, I tend to go and stand somewhere near the table to see what's happening. And I find once they notice I'm stood there, it tends to go quiet again. They don't make as much noise if there's a referee stood just outside court, because it's sometimes an indication of it's getting heated between the 2 players. It might just be that they are playing an exceptionally good match and they're just sort of geeing themselves up. But the referee's presence does sometimes have quite a calming influence. So I tend to go and stand somewhere near if I hear a lot of noise on one particular table. And you might find that will help if you do it yourself, Jason. If you've got a lot of shouting and bawling on one particular table, go and stand somewhere near so they know they're being watched, you're watching what's going on. Quite often that's enough to make it go a bit quieter.
I think Brian, I think there's just a comment there from Tony Diaz. I'm not sure in jest or not. One way to reduce their shouting is to tell players that your ears are hurting. I'm not sure that's the official policy, is it?
I've not heard that one before, but I dare say it'll work.
I think that's the question. If you've got any questions now, if you just want to quickly type them in. Can you see the question there, Brian, from Imad?
Yeah. Well, I watched the who was it? I watched one of on the ping pong, World Ping Pong on Saturday, and Matt Ware and Gavin Rumgay, and they were just shouting and screaming all the way through it. It was a very noisy match, but I also think it adds to the atmosphere of the tournament sometimes when people are pumping themselves up, making lots of noise. It adds to the atmosphere in the hall. If everyone was playing in silence, it becomes a little bit too clinical, but the noise, I think, does add to atmosphere there, as long as it's not directed at anyone particular. It's just celebrating their own shots or geeing themselves up to play a bit harder in the next point. I don't have an issue with it.
John Stalker, like to say something about that?
Yeah.
that table tennis at the weekend, ping pong. I
Yeah.
think it was a good example of shouting, and a very good example, another one of throwing a bat, which has been mentioned by
Yeah, hitting
umpire
ball,
JBL.
yeah, hitting
However,
ball out
no
the
action
door.
was taken
Yeah,
because it's the top event. And to be honest with you, he deserved to throw that bat because the guy got 5 nets on the trot, and I don't think he was very happy. That's what I'd like to say. It made the
But-
weekend.
But
That-
it's not Table Tennis England ITTF rules at the
No.
ping pong. That's the key thing. If it had been Table Tennis England event, it would have been a red card from the referee.
I quite agree, Karen. I quite agree. But I'm just saying the enthusiasm for that weekend probably was one of the best things I've seen for a long time from table tennis.
It was good.
It's very good.
Hey, Brian, we've got another question from Chris there. Can an umpire play in one division in British League and then umpire in another division? Does that mean at the same time, or for instance, would you play the 11 o'clock and then umpire the 1 o'clock game? Or does it mean you play in the 11 o'clock game and then umpire in between playing? Not at the same time. Oh, sorry, yeah, referring that at separate times on different days, not at the same time. So
yeah,
could you play, for instance, in 11 o'clock round and then umpire in the 1 o'clock round at Vets British League?
People have done.
yeah, as far as I know, there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay. Question there: how many teams are playing in the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham? I'm not entirely sure the answer to that. What I can tell you, sorry.
They won't know yet.
Yeah, we do know, but I don't know the answer off the top of my head. What I can tell you is there are 8 tables at the Commonwealth Games, reduced from 6 tables at the Commonwealth Games, reduced from 8 at the last Commonwealth. So it's a reduction in teams from the last one. So the playing standard will be higher at the bottom level. So there's a stricter entry criteria for the bottom level at the Commonwealths. But I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head how many's there. It's not a huge amount though.
But it depends if then the country's federation lets them play in it.
I think there's an entry criteria now though, Karen, to get into the Commonwealths, as opposed to, I think the Commonwealths maybe 12 years ago. There's a lot of teams like Tuvalu and those islands in the Pacific playing in it. Those weren't.
Great.
Yeah, you provided some of them didn't even turn up with their own bat, did they?
No.
Those kind of teams aren't there in the Commonwealths now. There is a lower limit for Commonwealths, but it's certainly gone. The entry standards have gone higher this time because with the reduction of tables. And a comment there from Dave Edwards, experienced blue badge umpire, about noise again. It makes a difference with the size of the arena and level of noise. You may react differently if you umpire at Sippenham or the Derby Arena, because of the size of the venue.
And JBL, there's not a quiet one at any time of day. There's always noise at JBL. So, any more questions?
And David, there you won't be umpiring because it's now a mass vaccination centre, sadly.
Yeah.
No, that's the last one.
That's the last question.
Yep.
Thank you very much, everyone, for your attendance this evening. I hope that's been of some help to you. If there are any questions that you want to follow up with, please get in touch. We'll do our best to follow up the answers and get back to you. If you are wanting to do level 1, level 2, umpires, referees, whatever, please let Chris know. If we can't arrange anything instantly because of the COVID situation, as soon as we can, we'll get back in touch and let you know what we can do when we can do it. So thank you very much for attending. It's great to see everybody. Keep well, and hopefully before too long we'll be able to get back to some events. Thanks very much for coming along and joining us.